Welcome back to our Democratic debate special. Before she became United States Senator, Elizabeth Warren was a professor at Harvard Law School. Very impressive. She was the first tenured professor of color, you'll remember, at Harvard Law School. So she's a researcher. She's got an academic mind. It's not surprising she's been able to discover countless new forms of racism permeating American life, kinds you've never heard of before. She listed them last night during the debate. Listen.
We need to call out white supremacy for what it is, domestic terrorism, and it poses a threat to the United States of America. We live in a country now where the president is advancing environmental racism, economic racism, criminal justice racism, healthcare racism.
Well, she's a lot of fun. The question is, what is she talking about? What is healthcare racism, for example? What is environmental racism? We're trying to be open-minded here, but, we're going to need some help figuring out what those even are. Bob Woodson is the founder of the Woodson Center, and he joins us tonight. Mr. Woodson, thank you very much for coming on.
Pleased to be here again, Tucker.
So you've been in and around politics and the civil rights world for, more than 50 years. What is healthcare racism? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea, but as a veteran of the civil rights movement, I find her comments insulting, condescending, and patronizing. It also acts as a barrier for the exploration of real solutions that exist for places like Baltimore and low-income blacks. And I think that her continuing to harp on it is really harmful to any kind of discussion. But it also conceals the kind of real problems that exist. As a veteran of the movement, I remember back in the 60s, I left that movement because many of the blacks who suffered and sacrificed most did not benefit from the change. Dr. King said, what good does it do to have the right to eat in a restaurant if you don't have the means to exercise it? But middle-income blacks used the demographics and the behavior of low-income blacks as the bait, and the switch came when the money arrived. And that's why the biggest problem in black America today isn't between whites and blacks, it's internal. And Elizabeth Warren and people who continue to emphasize the external enemy are preaching a false solution. Black America's destiny has never been determined by what white people do or do not do. But that's what we're left with. And so what I think that it deflects attention away from the real problems, and that is the people who are supposed to be serving those communities. Racism is not the most formidable problem. It's a problem. The real problem is the kind of betrayal by the leaders of these cities in the last 50 years. The urban communities where you have the highest crime, the most drug-infested, have been run by liberal black Democrats for 50 years. And the question is, and we've spent $22 trillion in these places, and yet the problems are getting worse. In Forsyth County, Tucker, in 1914, the Klan drove 1,000 blacks out. In Washington, D.C., 20,000 blacks in the last 20 years have been driven out by gentrification. But you don't see these leaders addressing issues, economic issues like that, is because they can dodge, they can avoid confronting those issues because they use race as a shield.
Yes.
Racism, white people could all go to Europe tomorrow and the conditions of the inner city would not change. And not all blacks are suffering equally. There are 3 zip codes in Prince George's County where the median income for black families is $170,000. They're 3 times richer than most whites. If racism were the pervasive problem, then why are not all blacks suffering equally? And so I think it's time to stop this preoccupation with race and recalibrate and come together to address the problems of low-income people of all races, and because answers exist. Jack Kemp
you're a courageous man for saying that. You're a courageous man for saying that. I guess what are they going to say to you? But most people can't say what you said, and certainly can't say it as clearly and insightfully as you just did, and we're grateful for it.
But these people are traitors. They really are, and they need to be called out for it. But there are solutions. Jack Kemp exemplified that. Steve Goldsmith, Dick Riordan, the first mayor of... so answers exist, and we just need to pursue them. But we can't do it as long as we stay stuck on the race grievance issue.
Well, of course, it just divides people. But Elizabeth Warren benefits in the short term. She got tenure out of it, too. So obviously she sees an upside. Great to see you tonight. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Tucker.